Also, another mistranslation is the God. God is not supposed to be singular in the Bible. It's plural in all cases, gods with an S. For people in the third dimension, we're in the third dimension, what we tend to not understand, time doesn't exist. And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and what we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other, like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet. The programmers that are writing this AI code, they're not conscious. You know how we know they're not conscious? Because you look at the way that the algorithms work on social media, they're racist, they're biased, right? They have agendas. We know this just by posting stuff on social media, how the AIs work and manage your social media account. And so we have to have conscious programmers, people who are spiritually conscious and focusing on becoming an ascended wisdom keeper. Translation that's off is they say, well, Jesus was crucified.
Whoa.
Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible.
What happened?
It doesn't exist in the book of Barnabas. They didn't kill him. In Harvard Library, there is a book of Jesus' wife at the Harvard Seminary School. And they found that about 8 years ago.
Jesus' wife is the Mary Magdalene?
Yeah.
So she was not actually...
They're assuming it's Mary Magdalene. It doesn't specifically say, but let's assume that it is, which means he probably had kids and his Merovingian bloodline is still probably walking the land till this very day. People say, why do you always study the past? Why are you into this ancient texts and ancient books and all? Because until you understand what happened back then, you won't be able to build a future. The future is going to be built based on what you know about your true past and your true history. If you can't figure out at least as close as possible to what was happening back then, the future is still going to be a gray area. The word for virgin was mistranslated from Aramaic into Greek. So the word originally meant, I think it was laga, which means young woman. By the time it got to Greek, it was translated wrongly into virgin, which then made it into the biggest part of the story of Jesus, which is that his mother was
So she might not have been a virgin.
It's possible, but when I saw what convinced me, that's why I looked deeper. That's how I found out about the grandmother. I said it might be true, but they still use that mistranslated word for that. Maybe they didn't have another word to use, but that's a big mistake. Because there's certain parts of the Bible where they use that same word to describe women as being virgins, and they tell men that you have the right to rape them.
So who do you think wrote this?
These are these Anunnaki people. See, they were these Atlantean leaders.
Yes.
It got to the point where they became greedy and they became self-made gods, and they really believed it. They were battling each other
like
over
the pharaohs
resources.
Of Egypt in a way?
Yeah.
Gotcha. You're drunk
battling
off
over
power.
Resources and people.
Wow.
Battling and, literally like fighting over who's controlling who. And how we all got to be different races.
Yeah.
That goes back to...
How did that happen?
Yeah, that goes back to the Tower of Babel incident in the Bible, which comes out of the Sumerian tablets. I believe personally, just based off of my research, and I've gone through now over 1,000 scriptures, texts, papyruses, cuneiform tablets from all over the world. They all have a very similar story. And all these ancient civilizations talk about beings, not just beings who came here from other planets, people that look like us and we look like them. In other words, not identical, but very similar. In other words, a bilateral, bipedal hominid of some type that can maneuver around, that has appendages that can manipulate the environment, because without that, you can't move out into space and other places. And they also talk about multidimensional. You get into like the Nag Hammadi, stuff like that. You're talking about multidimensional beings. And so in physics, in quantum physics in particular, they started theorizing on these dimensions and were able to even analyze and discover some that they actually do exist. And on top of that, they realized that the dimensions are packed so tight on top of one another that if you can phase shift your atomic structure, your subatomic frequency, you can walk right into another dimension. And so they started postulating, what if beings from higher dimensions or some of these apparitions and these paranormal phenomena that we're seeing, are they able to maybe take a glimpse or a peek? Are they phasing through into our universe? And so from higher dimensions. And so they started really theorizing it. It seems to be, and based on my research, that there's people living everywhere. Not just, and I'm not talking about little green men with antenna. I think that there's people living all throughout this universe in the third dimension. And I think there's people living all throughout even higher multiple dimensions, maybe at a certain level, a certain height in those dimensions. Maybe they don't have a real corporeal body.
Right, non-physical.
Non-physical, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that the consciousness is there. So if you draw a line on a piece of paper, that's the first dimension. If you then connect those lines and create a house on a piece of paper, that's a two-dimensional structure, or you can move it into a computer. Anything you see in a computer that looks 3D is actually 2D. Right? So, and because we're in the third, we can see down into 2D. We can see all the way down, obviously, into 1D, and we can manipulate those dimensions from our higher selves. Now, now there are beings in fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. There's people above us. Now, because of that, they see us and they recognize the past, present, and future operating all at the same time. Everything's happening at once.
Right.
There is no separation between the past, present, and the future. The arrow doesn't exist. Because they're higher than us, they can look down into the third and they can see into what we're doing. There are 11 dimensions, at least we believe that in theoretical physics, right? And we believe that now through real science that the brain is connecting to 11 dimensions. I just did a huge lecture on that the other day where scientists and laboratories have now understood now that the brain, the synapses between the connections in the brain, the neurons, are phasing in and out of the third dimension and connecting potentially in the theory to higher dimensions. That means that the earth itself, which is conscious, the earth itself is actually conscious. It's also connecting to these higher dimensions. It has a capability of phase shifting consciously to higher levels of thought and awareness of its own self. And so I believe that as the human beings on the surface become more conscious and we get this mass awakening, it's also going to allow the earth to transform into its true dimension or its true self, where it really wants to be, this higher level of self that the earth has it as well. And that we can phase shift together into this, higher dimension of consciousness. And this physical third dimension will always be here, but our thought level will be so high, we'll be able to perceive the past, present, and future at the same time. We'll be able to see the end before the beginning. We'll begin to tap into our true innate abilities that we already have. And we'll recognize that we're all truly spiritual beings and that there is no separation. Fourth dimension is something called a tesseract. And if you go into the ancient text, it's Metatron's cube. We're living in a shadow of a higher dimension. That shadow creates a third dimension. It actually creates a fractal of it, creates this fractal holographic matrix that we're actually maneuvering in the third dimension right now. You can actually connect to other realms, other dimensions through conscious thought. Quantum entangling your light waves with other light waves that exist in the universe, not only in the third dimension, but even multiple dimensions. The language of God is mathematics, because mathematics can literally explain everything that we experience and everything also that exists. Even the fact that we're existing in a light matrix can be proven through mathematics. So we're living in a matrix that's basically written on mathematics called Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes go all the way back to the Dogons. Dogon tribes out of Mali, Africa. They actually originated these codes, and they were given these codes by the Nomo, and they learned them. They drew them out as art forms. And they put them on clothing and blankets and everything else. I was referencing the flower of life, which, if you don't know what that is, anybody out there, it's a sacred geometrical figure. And it really goes back to as above, so below. If you're looking at, for example, just when you start off with the ovum with an egg, that's one sphere. And by the time you add 6 more interconnecting spheres, so it's really a progression of life. And at the base of everyone's spine are a group of cells that are in the form of the flower of life. And you also see almost all organic, especially mammalian species. There's this flower of life cellular formation in the base of the spine. It's there from the time you're born and stays until you die. But that's just a representation in a biological life form, because as above, so below. When you go into the next level, where we're talking about the ether of space-time itself, and this is where he was kind of really getting deep with it. He discovered, when he unwrapped the flower of life, he discovered the energy grid, the grid that binds us all together.
6,000 years
mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. Now, do you know the flower of life? Have you guys ever seen this before? Now, you know this is one of the oldest symbols in human history, right? Or do you not know? This symbol was found in the Temple of Osiris in Egypt, and it had been molecularly burned into the wall. And it's 6,000 years old. This same symbol has been found in the forbidden temples in China, sitting under the fufu dogs. And the foot on it, the flower of life, saying whoever controlled that flower of life controlled the universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that Da Vinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover. The same secrets that Pythagoras was desperately trying to uncover. But their problem was they couldn't get it out of this two-dimensional frame. And as a result, they got stuck in this plane, a flat plane. Now, what Da Vinci and all of them wanted to do, they were trying to find a way to bring this flower to life, because what is inside of it? Well, apparently, there were secrets inside of it. Shapes, they got the Merkaba and all of those other things out of it. But they were misled by something I think called a straight line. You guys believe in straight lines? You believe there's straight lines in the universe? Well, let me hit you with something. All energy in the universe is expressed in what? It's in motion. If something is still, there's no energy. Kinetic, right? All motion is expressed in what? You look at galaxies, are they expressed in straight lines? Expressed in vortices. All vortices are expressed in what? Waves. All waves are curved. Show me a straight line in nature. You show me where the platonic solids come from. Where do they have their foundations in our universe? Are there any straight lines? If you look at anything, there are no straight lines. That's been the mistake. We've been looking at these straight lines, this Euclidean way of thinking, and missing the curvature of nature.
And when he's talking about the spheres, there are no straight lines. He's not saying, truly, in my opinion at least, from the short mind stuff that he said, that platonic solids don't exist. Platonic solids are part of the holographic matrix. Behind all of that, the only thing that does exist are electromagnetic waves. That's all, and there are no straight lines. So behind the holographic, the fractal quantum holographic universe, behind that, there is nothing but electromagnetic waves, and those waves are propagating and being sent into this realm, into this dimension, carrying energy, frequency, vibration. And when they interact with conscious thought, that's when they collapse things into platonic solids, which then collapse things into what we get as an illusion of solidity, an illusion of locality, an illusion of space and differentiation, an illusion of perception. There's really only one true thing that does exist outside of what we consider to be the third dimension, is consciousness. And so consciousness literally has divided itself into trillions and trillions of entities throughout this entire universe. And the method that it emanates from is through something called the vesica piscis. Now, the vesica piscis is actually part of the flower of life. So where you have the intersecting circles in the flower of life, that is every one of those intersections is a womb. So at every single Planck unit in space-time, which is the smallest amount of distance you can measure, and time you can measure in space-time, all around us, all through us, and everywhere that that exists, is this flower of life. I mean, everywhere. Now, every single spot where the flower of life is located, there's also the intersections, and those intersections are the vesica piscis. Now, the vesica piscis emanates energy into the third dimension. Out of the vesica piscis is literally a womb, just like when you cut open a lemon, cut open an orange, cut open a grapefruit. Obviously, a human being is born through a womb. Life primarily comes through wombs. And this is why even in the biblical text, they reference the matrix. The matrix means the womb. So it's mentioned, I think, 5 or 6 times in the modern day Bible itself, which is copied from more ancient texts. But the name, the Matrix, for the movie didn't come from somebody's brain. They just made it, we'll make it the Matrix. No, the term the matrix actually comes from the Bible.